Hello and welcome to Meet the Expert. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Craig.
Today it's your chance to meet experts from Scotland's world-renowned technology sector. We've 4 current or recent apprentices who are ready to share their experience and advice with you. You'll hear about what they've been working on and you'll get to ask the questions that you want answered to find out more about working in technology and about completing an apprenticeship.
So this is Scottish Apprenticeship Week. So this is a great time to share the value of apprenticeships and what they can bring to individuals, to employers and to the economy. Today you'll hear stories from apprentices from across Scotland so you can find out what it's like to be a modern apprentice.
Apprenticeships are becoming a really popular entry into the tech industry. It's a way that gets you embedded into a company and gets you into paid work right from the start, while letting you study along the way. You get to earn while you learn.
That's a good way to remember it, Daniel, earn while you learn. So in Scotland, there's currently a digital skills gap. Employers are calling out for more people with tech skills, and in the future, they're going to need even more. And it's not just technology companies, every business in Scotland can benefit. So whether you're interested in healthcare or energy, engineering, financial services, retail, or music, gaming, film and TV, or social care, there are opportunities for everyone.
We're going to be talking to 4 apprentices today. They all have different roles, but all of them use tech and digital skills. Before we bring them on though, we'd like to welcome the different schools and groups watching today and sending in questions.
Yeah, we've got hundreds of you joining us today. So Daniel, let's play a bit of local authority bingo. So when we shout out your local authority, if your class could give us a nice loud cheer from your room, it needs to be loud so that Daniel and I can hear you from where we are. So Daniel, let's give a shout out to some of these local authorities. So hello to schools joining us from North Lanarkshire. Hello to you. And schools joining us from East Lothian. Thank you for taking part. Schools from Midlothian. Thank you for taking part today.
Big hello and welcome to schools from across Fife. We're completing the Lanarkshires. We've got South Lanarkshire schools joining and watching too. And we've got another Lothian, we've got West Lothian. So a big hello.
We've also got careers advisors joining us from Skills Development Scotland. Thank you for joining us this morning. And I can see, Daniel, we've got a few classes already starting to send in their questions as well. So hello to Renfrew High School. Thank you for joining us today. And St Ninian's High School, thanks for taking part.
There's some international viewers as well this morning. So we've got some schools joining from California. So if you are in San Diego, San Bernardino, Sacramento County, or Chula Vista, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining and watching our Meet the Expert session.
So this is your chance to ask your questions as well. So if you look down here at the bottom, there's a QR code that you can scan, or you can follow that link and you can send us in your questions as well, and we'll ask our apprentices. So we've had lots of questions coming already, Daniel.
Yes, we have. So keep sending in your questions. That QR code and that link is going to be there the whole session, so keep them coming. If you are an adult or a teacher, you can tweet us and you can send a message to @DigitalWorldHQ on Twitter. We always like seeing who's taking part. Let us know how you're getting on, maybe a photo of what's happening in the classroom or the learning space that you're in. So it's @DigitalWorldHQ and that'll appear at a few points throughout the session today. So Craig, I think it's time for us to get started. Let's bring on our first apprentices.
Hello, Eve and Scott, and welcome to our Meet the Expert. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So you both work at Accenture. So tell me, let's go for Eve first. What does Accenture do?
So I get asked this question a lot because not a lot of people have heard of Accenture. My first answer is always everything. So essentially Accenture is a consultancy firm, which means that they help their clients, which are other companies or other organizations in the world, to solve their problems. We are based within the technology branch of Accenture, so we help set up technology solutions for other companies.
That's great. And Scott, who are the sort of customers or clients that Accenture would normally work with?
It kind of varies. Obviously, Accenture being worldwide, there's oil and gas, health and public services. We've got financial companies, banks, tech companies, TV broadcasting companies.
So a wide
It's
range
just
then?
a wide range, yeah. Pretty much every kind of industry you could think of, they've got their finger in that pot.
Brilliant. So let's talk a bit about what you do, because you're both apprentices and you both are on a similar sort of apprenticeship scheme, but you have different roles, is that right? So Scott, I understand that your specialism is more in cybersecurity.
Yeah, yeah.
So what area do you work in cyber?
So at the moment, it's dealing with things like client data protection. So I'm in a public services I work with a public services organisation, and it's kind of things regarding obviously data protection, making sure that Accenture and our clients are following protocols regarding data protection, GDPR, data safety in regards to things like backing up secure data, just maintaining a safe environment and making sure that we're as safe as possible without leaks or any other kind of breaches that obviously no company wants to have.
Totally, and so much of us are sharing information with, if it's a public sector company, it could be, health details, or it could be other personal things about it. So we need people like you to help make sure that data is being stored in a secure and safe way.
Yeah.
Eve, you've got a slightly different sort of role. You work in more the software development side, is that right?
Yeah, well, so I've only been on this apprenticeship for 6 months, and that was kind of the starting point, I suppose, for the apprenticeship. And given that it's such a huge company and I'm an apprentice, I kind of have the option to be flexible and try different things. So I started out with like a more of a web development kind of side, so I helped build some web applications. But recently I've actually been upskilling and learning some more like data analytics sorts of things, because that's the kind of area I want to eventually move into. But currently I'm still doing some software development projects.
Brilliant. So this is great. And are you both at different stages of your apprenticeship? So Eve, you mentioned that you've been doing it for about 6 months. And Scott, have you completed yours, or are you in the middle of it?
I'm in the middle of it. I'm in my second year, so it'll be the end of my second year is August. So yeah,
Brilliant.
been doing it for a wee while now, yeah.
So before I pass you over to Daniel, I'm going to ask you a question that we ask all our guests. So we set up your tech profile here. So I'm going to ask you first, Eve. So what was your favourite thing to do on the computer when you were at high school? A lot of our audience today will be young people studying at high school at the moment. What was your favourite thing to do on the computer?
So I'm going to show my age here. There's two things that come to mind. MSN, the old relic of the history. So it's kind of like a computer version of WhatsApp. Think of it that way. And the other thing was to play a game called RuneScape, which I think is still around today. It was very popular back in the day. It's kind of like an old school web-based version of, what can you compare it to nowadays? Because I was going to say World of Warcraft, but that's still a bit dated as well.
Stardew Valley? Trying to think of like a modern equivalent, but yeah. Don't worry,
Club
you're
Penguin.
like...
That's also not up to date, is it?
I mean, those videos are still popular on YouTube. It's not that out of date, don't worry. Thanks, Eve. Scott, the question for you is about, I don't know if you're a gamer maybe as well, but if you were to use any cheat code from any game in real life, what would you want to use?
It's probably an obvious answer, usually money related. The main one that springs to mind is obviously Sims games. Motherload instantly gave you, I can't remember exactly how much money it was, but gave you a ton of money and let you do whatever you wanted to do. It's the main cheat that I can remember from games, so it's the one that
Unlimited
sticks in my
money is a
mind,
good, yeah. I used to use, I think it was Rosebud in The Sims as well, which gave you 1,000, and I think Motherload gave you even more than that. So yeah, unlimited money, not a bad cheat either. So if you're watching along and you've got your questions that you want to ask Eve and Scott, remember you can scan in the QR code or follow that link and send them in. But Daniel, you've got a few questions here that have already been sent to us. I'll pass over to you while I watch for them coming in.
Yeah, so the theme of this session is apprenticeships. And, first of all, when you're doing an apprenticeship, you're also learning at the same time as you're working. So it'd be good if you can maybe explain a bit how that works. Do you go to college, university, or what's the kind of, how does it quite fit together? So maybe Eve will go to you first.
Yeah, so it's quite structured. We have one day of a week which is dedicated to university, and the university, so we have lectures that day. We don't need to worry about work things, and the rest of the 4 days we just are working full time.
And is it just like a sort of a normal university you go to? Is it quite typical classes, or is it very specific to the apprenticeship?
So obviously it relates a lot to the apprenticeship, and I think it's massively helpful because you've kind of got both components supporting one another. We're on the course with other graduate apprentices, so everyone else is also working on our course as well. So the lecturers and the tutors all understand our work commitments, and they also kind of bring in some of the work elements to our work to our learning, so it fits in quite well.
Great. And Scott, what's the balance like for you? Is it the same with you being in your second year, or is the balance slightly different for you?
If I'm honest, I find it's a really good balance. Because it's an apprenticeship, like Accenture are very supportive. They're aware of the fact that obviously we're going to have university work as well as our normal work. We get given study days, I think it's 5 a year, so we could take extra days to do extra work. So for example, if we have exams coming up or coursework due, they give us the extra days to make sure that we're keeping up. And then I know personally my manager is very supportive. Everybody's very helpful, and yeah, it helps a lot with your work-life balance in regards to university and work. Yeah.
Which university is it you study at?
Glasgow, Caledonia.
Brilliant.
So it sounds like a good balance, but you can work and you get in one day at university. Is that your favorite thing about taking this path, or is there something else that you're like, no, this is the reason why I really like doing an apprenticeship? Eve, what do you think?
Ooh, you've asked a very broad question there. So I think that was what attracted me first of all, so that we got to learn and we got to have a job to develop our careers and we got to broaden our horizons. But I think now that I've kind of got into it, it's all the people and possibilities and connections that I've made that has just been such a wonderful experience.
And Scott, is
Yeah,
it kind of...
Sorry. I would probably agree in a lot of it. I enjoy, obviously, it's very attractive the fact that you're going to university, etc., as well as working. And I like the combination of it. I feel like working gives you a real world perspective of what you're learning and lets you put what you're learning into practice. And as Eve said, I feel it helps you a lot with the company. It helps you with networking and further learning as well. So for example, like I've done cloud certifications and stuff on the side, which helps university and it helps my work, and that kind of thing is made easier with my employer working with university.
I think that real world experience is really important to a lot of people, because sometimes you might be studying a course and say you're in full-time study and you might think, yeah, but do people actually do this in their real job? Like, is this actually useful in the sort of working world? But I guess from your experience, everything that you're doing is going to have some connection then to what you actually do in your job as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that it definitely follows along. Obviously, there's certain sections. It depends on where your work path is within your role. But there's always something within your university role that works with your work path as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
I think
So we've had a couple questions come in from pupils. There's one here that I find quite interesting. Have you both always been interested in technology, or is it something that you've been more interested over time? What was it that attracted you to go into like a tech role, a tech apprenticeship? So Scott, what was kind of your interests when you were at school, and have you managed to kind of combine that here.
Yeah, when I was at school, my main focus was getting a job in the games industry. And it was one of those things, I went to college and I got a HNC in 3D computer animation. And just kind of doing that, I decided that wasn't for me. And I ended up working for a few years as a heavy vehicle mechanic, so I was working on trucks and buses. But I'd always had the part of me where I wanted to get into computing, etc. So when I was on heavy vehicles, it was electrician, so it was always laptops and the electrical side of things. And then it just kind of got to the point where I knew fine I had to go for it and do a career change, and that was when I found the apprenticeships, and that's kind of it helped me make up my mind basically, because I couldn't have afforded to go back to university full time, and the apprenticeship opens that up, so you're still able to work as well as learn new things.
And Eve, how about you? Have you had quite a strong interest in tech before, or was that something that kind of appealed a bit later on?
I mean, I'd always grown up with technology, and I think what kind of directed me down this path was when I was in school, when I particularly got to college, I had my interests split. So on one side I was very interested in, and I was quite doing some music technology, so production of music, and very interested in the creative side of things. But I was quite academic on the other side, so I was quite into mathematics and physics. And this kind of brings that creativity and that academic knowledge together into one. So it just kind of was the perfect fit for both of my interests.
Great. There's a question that maybe Eve, you might be able to answer. So sort of like, so this is a question from Amelie at Sitninians, and Amelie's asking, what programming language do you find yourself using the most in your apprenticeship?
I mean, this is probably the most common answer would be Python. It's just easy to use to just write up a basic idea of things, and then that can be taken forward and implemented in different ways with the languages, but Python's always a fantastic starting language.
Great.
And Scott, what cybersecurity technologies are you using in your apprenticeship that maybe someone might want to use at school, or look into more?
At the moment, so far, we've covered things like SQL, SQL injection, etc., kind of preventing hacking, etc., from that perspective. So it's more SQL, HTML, Java, and defensive programming, as they call it, just making sure that apps are secure when you start developing them, and just integrating that level of security as you develop an app.
Brilliant.
Right.
Daniel, I think we've got time for maybe one more question.
Yeah, let's have a look at questions we've had submitted. Do you know, this is probably quite a nice question to finish on. So there's probably quite a lot of maybe myths or stereotypes about doing an apprenticeship. Is there maybe one common myth that you would like to debunk and be like, that's not true, actually it's like this? I can see Eve, you're smiling. Does something come to mind?
Yes. So when I was in school, I always kind of avoided. There was apprenticeships, like they came in and people talked about apprenticeships. I always was like, that's not an app for academic people. University degree is what's for academic people, and I was an academic person, so I always ignored the apprenticeship thing. And I wish I hadn't now, because I realized it's absolutely not that way at all. It's just about finding your way through life, and apprenticeships can be just as academic and rewarding as normal degrees.
Right, I think that's a great
Thank
answer. And how about you, Scott? Is there any myths you'd like to bust?
The only kind of one that I could think of that's kind of similar to Eve is that maybe some people see apprenticeships as kind of a lower or entry level, where it's not quite as advanced as going to university, etc. But I would say that's not true at all, because obviously we are going to university. We're still doing the same university degree that you would do if you were to leave school and just do a full university course. The only difference is obviously it can take a touch longer, but you're doing it within a working environment as well. But you're still learning the exact same things. It's not like a reduced course, it's not a lower level. You're still getting your degree to the exact same level as somebody who just goes to university.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Eve. That's been really good to get an insight into what you actually do in the roles, because sometimes you might just see an apprenticeship advertised in a brochure or a job advert and you don't really know what actually goes on in it, what you're getting out of it as well. And I really liked how you're able to sort of debunk some of those myths as well, because even though modern apprenticeships have been a thing for, you know, a while now, some people still have certain perceptions of them. But I think you're both examples of people who are having a great experience at it, learning lots, being able to, you know, have really interesting roles inside companies that people will know about around the world. So thank you very much for joining us this morning and answering some of these questions.
Thanks for having us.
So it's time to speak to some more apprentices, and Mia and Katie are joining us from DXC Technologies. So hello, Katie and Mia. So
Hi.
hello. So you both work at DXC. I think let's ask a very similar question to we did with Accenture. What does DXC Technology do? So maybe Mia, you could tell us a bit about what they do, and then Katie will ask you a bit about the customers.
Yeah, so DXC is a kind of world-leading technology company. One of Accenture's competitors, actually, at the minute, I think. But this kind of touches on the question that Katie's going to answer in terms of customers. But in the UK and I, we focus primarily within public sector work and working with the NHS, kind of defence areas and Ministry of Justice and stuff like that. But as a global company, we kind of work with a lot of different regions and a lot of different areas in terms of finance and management and customer service.
Great. And Katie, would you say that kind of matches up with your experience and sort of the types of companies and sectors that you've managed to get to work with as well?
Yes, there's a whole range of clients that we work with.
So Katie and Mia, let's talk a bit about what you actually do as part of your job. So Katie, I understand you've nearly completed the apprenticeship, is that correct?
Yes, and 2 years have flown by.
And what's it been like? What team are you part of? What type of thing do you do as part of your apprenticeship and your job?
So my role is a service transition manager. So that's to ensure services or projects have a smooth transition from development onto deployment to production. So I would go through a checklist with the project manager, the project engineers, and all the stakeholders, and then I would make sure that everything required for the service and the project has been completed. So like any documents, like the user manual and things like that.
So when you're talking about like a project or a service, might this look like, so could it be an app or it could be like a tool that someone uses in their work? And when you're talking about going from deployment to production, what does that mean? Is it kind of like putting it live, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's from being made and then we put into production. So yeah, pretty much. We put into the live environment.
Used by people. Perfect. So you're the one responsible for hitting that button then that makes it available for people to use?
Yep.
Mia, tell us a bit about your role and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a junior associate project manager in the defence area as well. So I'm working on kind of small to medium-sized projects at the minute, ranging from as little as about £5,000 to 250,000. And through that, we kind of make sure that the defence area have all of the technology that they need to use to basically deliver what they need to deliver. One of my main projects at the minute is a data analysis one and a system software that would be put into the secure environment, and kind of how that runs on the daily basis of how the customer sees their data and how it's used internally as well.
So Mia, you're talking about working with defence and that area as well. So you talked about a secure environment there. Now, the place that you worked, it probably has to then be set up in a certain way to make everything more safe and secure for you to access and send those sort of things. Is that right? What's the setup here like? What's the office like?
Yeah, absolutely. One side of the office is the kind of warehouse side where all of the kit is built, so it's less secure because they don't have as much kind of secure networks. The side of the office that I work in, we have all of the secure areas. So there's a large area where we're not allowed any phones, we're not allowed any kind of Apple Watches or things like that. We have to be very cautious of what we say and what we take out of each environment. Just so that everything is kept secure and maintained to a very high standard.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's like, you know, a big responsibility as well. When you're working in that job right now, you're having to take those things into account. Just for a little bit of fun, why don't we ask you both your tech profile questions as well? So I will ask you first, Katie. So Katie, what was your favourite piece of technology that you had when you were growing up? What did you like to use?
One of the main things was probably Video Star on my phone.
Oh yeah.
I would enjoy making videos and things like that. Yeah.
So you'd always enjoyed being creative with technology as well?
Yeah, creative was one of the main things, especially during lockdown recently. I created a QR code map for a local school. And
brilliant.
yeah, so that allowed the primary ones who couldn't get on to the building to see that.
That's great. Did you do that as part of your apprenticeship, or did you do it separate from that?
That was while I was in high school, so when I was like 4th year.
Brilliant. Excellent. And do you get to use any of your creativity as part of your apprenticeship?
Yes, so within the resourcing, which I've previously worked with, I get to make a dashboard by using the Power BI tool, Microsoft, and using that and creating visuals.
So that must be important then, like, so the dashboard, this idea that you're communicating maybe stats or like the important things that other people in the team need to know, but you need to do it in a way that's going to be like easy for them to understand, or like they can pick it up just by glancing at it.
Yeah, so this demonstrates the statistics of the analytics practice, and they can then click on it, and it's interactive, and it shows various things of like the numbers and like the pie charts, bar graphs, all that kind of thing. It's zoom in
Brilliant.
certain areas.
Thank you. Mia, I'm going to ask you a question as well. So if you could use any cheat code from a video game in real life, what cheat code would you use?
I'm going to be honest, I was never really kind of interested in games, so I'm not very familiar in terms of codes and stuff, but we touched on Sims and kind of playing that and the kind of never-ending money supply, and I think that would be pretty nice, not only just to kind of buy things that you really want, but also to put the effort and the time and the money into developing your career and where you want to be at the end of the day, because that can support whether it's moving away, having a kind of different area where you go and work solely for office and start your own business and things like that. So probably something like that.
That's definitely a cheat code. In games you get a lot of these skills branches where you can like learn new things as you play the game, and what you're saying is you want to kind of max out those skill branches. You want to get the ones that you're reaching for. That's brilliant.
Definitely.
Daniel, you've got some questions that have come in as well.
Yeah, so again, this session today is all about apprenticeships, and there's lots of different types of apprenticeships. So we've got things like modern apprenticeships and graduate apprenticeships, and I thought it'd be good if you could let the audience know sort of what's the type of apprenticeship that you're both doing. So Mia, what type of apprenticeship is it that you're completing?
Yeah, so I actually completed mine coming up for 18 months, just over 18 months ago actually, and it was the Skills Development Scotland Modern Apprenticeship, and I think it was the Business Systems and Information Technology one, and it was fantastic. It kind of opened you up to a load of different areas within technology and how you can apply the business aspect to it as well, which has been really useful when I've had to use it in my everyday job.
That's great. And Katie, which apprenticeship program is it that you're on?
Yeah, so similar to Mia, with the Skills Development Scotland, working with the QA training provider, I completed the IT and telecoms diploma. Just finished that about a month ago, and yeah, it's been really interesting seeing areas like networking, Windows 10, managing modern desktops and things like that.
So those qualifications that you've been completing, whereabouts is it that you've been doing it? Is it internally, or is it with a college or a university?
Mine was with QA, so it was QA courses that lasted about a week with some coursework that we had roughly about 3 months to complete at a time. And our company allowed us a day a week to focus on that training time. And then once we'd completed that, we were also allowed to apply that to internal training for further development in terms of anything that was aligned to your specific role or anything that you would like to look at further down your career.
So QA are like a training company that come into your office, or do you go out to their offices?
It was all done virtually because of COVID, but prior to that, I do believe there was a QA office where you went in for the week-long workshops and courses.
And Katie, what was your experience like? Oh, just so we can hear you a bit better, just move your microphone slightly further away. That's great.
Yeah, so that was the same. I work from home, so that was all through virtually.
Yeah, and was it the same setup where you were working, was it like one day a week you were doing as part of your training, or was it more than that?
Yes, one day a week set aside, and then there was a QA assessor who led you through the programme and all the courses and units to complete.
Brilliant. This sounds good, because there's a lot of people who, I'm someone who likes learning, right? So I run courses and we do digital skills training as well, but I'm always like, if I'm going into a job, I always want to be looking for ways to learn new skills or do something as well. So again, it sounds like an apprenticeship, like because that's built into like something that you definitely have to do as part of, completing it, you're given the time then to like do that sort of core training, and not everyone gets that as part of their job.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the benefits of being on DXC's early career programme, is even if you're joining as a grad or an apprentice, you still get that time per week to apply to training and development. You can also use that for volunteering hours, and if you choose to do kind of charity work, which I have done since completing my apprenticeship, I lead up our Erskine site charity team. So I've kind of used that to my advantage and looked at training and development courses such as Prince 2, Foundation and Practitioner, which is aligned with project management. There's Agile and Scrum certifications that we can do internally, which are also covered and paid for by the company. So it's kind of a good way for the early careers to expand their kind of marketing in terms of who likes to be on the early career programme, but also allows their grads and apprentices to get as much as they can out of it.
This is brilliant. I've got a couple of questions, Daniel, I'll ask, and then maybe a couple from you as well. Mm-hmm. So, Katie, Mia, there'll be a lot of teenagers just now watching, wanting to know, is this the type of thing that they should maybe consider? What would you tell yourself, or what would you tell someone who's 15, 16, 17, maybe considering about doing an apprenticeship? What would you tell them now, knowing what you've experienced? So, who would like to go for that first? Katie, do you want to answer that?
Yes, so I would just say, just keep going. Just think about what you want to do. Just take it as it comes and take everything that comes at you.
So go for it. Are you saying that it could be
pretty much
an option?
Yeah.
That's great. Mia, what would you tell a teenager who's maybe thinking about getting into an apprenticeship, maybe not sure about it? What would you say?
Yeah, so I say definitely go for it. I was kind of the person, I think Eva touched on it previously when she was looking at it a few years back. Kind of when you're in high school and you think, oh, I'm really academic, like I want to do university, I want to do this, I'm dead set on getting a career and that kind of thing. And for years and years, my parents were like, "Do an apprenticeship, it's great, like working through your qualification or your degree." And I was always like, "No, no, I want the university experience." And part of me does, I feel like I've missed out on the university experience, but I'm no less fortunate in terms of a qualification, a well-paid job, a job that I love, a fantastic group of friends and family to support me, and also mentors that ensure my success is one of their main priorities, and their kind of development. My development is one of their priorities. Um, when I was in high school, like I said, I wasn't really that confident in looking at apprenticeships, and it wasn't until I was a sixth year leaving high school in COVID, wasn't getting any of the kind of roll off, kind of close up of school activities in terms of exams and prom. But it was kind of, we were sat in lockdown and we didn't really know what to expect, what was coming. And I just looked for apprenticeships and anything that was going to give me a good starting point, because I knew without exams I wasn't really on the best position to get into university or college. And it's 100% the best thing I've done, because out of all my friends who are at university and college, I'm in one of the best positions financially and career wise. And as much as they'll get to that point in a few years, they're really proud of how hard I've worked to get here at such a young age.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
I thought we could maybe stick on the theme of mentors there. So Mia, you mentioned a mentor, and an important part of doing an apprenticeship is you have a mentor that, you know, assists you in different ways. How did your mentor help you out, Mia?
So I have a mentor specifically aligned to my role, and for a while he was my mentor and now he's my boss, which is a good and a bad thing. But his sole priority is making sure that I understand what I'm doing, understand why I'm doing it, and how that assists in my progression, not only in my career but as a project manager, how it assists in the progression of projects, the completion of projects, and kind of getting everything aligned to where it's supposed to be, because there's so many different processes and no one has the right answers. So it's kind of making sure that if you're doing it, you're working your way through it and sharing that communication with your mentor, your team, and making sure that everyone understands it at the one point. So a mentor for one person kind of opens that up to the wider team, because whatever that mentor can kind of teach an individual person, the person can then apply that to their wider team and their project, to kind of, for everyone to learn at the same time.
It sounds really beneficial having that, you know, that person that you can go to, and that's kind of the one person that you know they're there to help you and sort of steer you and pass messages throughout.
Yeah.
I've got a question here that maybe Katie you'll be able to help out with. There's a question that's come in that says, do you only work with other apprentices, or do you work with a mixture of apprentices and more experienced workers?
So I mostly work with more experienced professionals, but there's a variety of graduates, apprentices that you work with depending on what your role is. Me personally, experienced professionals. So it just really depends what you're doing. If there's any, as Mia said, any like charity activities or STEM events, that's when you would maybe work with graduates and apprentices, etc.
It says that when you're working on projects, it's more with the kind of work colleagues, and then when you're doing more development things, it's with the apprentice. You come back together as a group. Yeah, I see lots of nodding.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. You kind of notice the younger work.
No,
Sorry, on you go. I was just going to say, you kind of notice the younger workforce are more keen to get involved in the engagement side of things from charity and STEM, and I think a lot of that is also to do with a lot of our company being virtual, and the younger people who are just getting into their first job, it's kind of like a bit daunting when you're stuck at home and not really got that full sense of engagement.
I think that, you know, what I've learned from both, you know, this conversation and the one that we had earlier, it seems like, you know, an apprenticeship isn't just about going in and doing a job and getting some training. There's elements there where you're getting to network professionally with other people. You're still getting to have that social experience, whether it's through work or through you know, the studying side of it as well. And, you know, a big benefit is that you're getting paid to do this as well. A lot of people who were maybe going out to, you know, think that you're either going to take one path or the other. You're going to become, you know, solely academic and maybe having to do a side job at the time, a Saturday job, something like that. But this is a way that you're getting all those good experiences that you might get from more formal, you know, from sort of traditional full-time courses, but you're getting the benefits of being paid and doing the real life work experience as well. This has been brilliant, Daniel. Is there any final things that have come through?
Oh, I suppose I don't want to deny the two of you the ability to bust a myth as well. So maybe that's a nice question to end on. Is there any sort of maybe myths that you want to bust, or something that you didn't expect, something that you found really fascinating about taking an apprentice? Katie, we'll go to you first. Is there a myth you'd like to bust?
I think more that you don't realise how much experience that you actually gain from having an apprenticeship, and it's a really good thing having that side of gaining a qualification and being able to work alongside the professionals. And that's pretty
Great.
much it, yeah.
And how about you, Mia?
Yeah, so I think a lot of my time on the apprenticeship scheme, I was worried about when I went to roll off in September last year. It was kind of going to be like you go from having all of this support to not having a lot of support because you're kind of fully fledged and you've got your qualification, you know what you're doing and kind of stuff like that. But that's not the case at all. Everyone appreciates that you're still young, you're still learning, you're still developing, and everyone's there to help. So it's not just, oh, they're an apprentice, like we'll support them until they're not an apprentice and then they know what they're doing. It's the support is always there.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. That has been really interesting and it's been great hearing from you. So thank you to all our guests today, to Eve, Mia, Scott and Katie. Thanks for taking part in our Meet the Expert session.
So we are coming to you today on our YouTube channel, and if you subscribe to us then you're going to get up to date with all of our latest videos. We're going to have more Meet the Expert sessions just like this one. And again, if you'd like to tweet us or let us know how you got on, there's the Twitter handle @DigitalWorldHQ as well.
And thanks everyone for sending in your questions as well. I'm sorry we've not been able to get through them all, but we really appreciate you joining in and taking part. If you liked today's video, you can like this video to say thank you to our experts for joining us today. But I think that's us covered everything today, Daniel.
Yes, so it's bye from Craig.
Bye-bye.
It's bye from our guests, and it's bye from me as well. See you next time.